Hey, thanks so much for tuning in, and today I want to speak to you about creating a panorama in Photoshop. Let's get started. Now, one of my favorite things to do is to take my stills camera with the tripod, head out and take a few panoramic images of a landscape or seascape or whatever it may be. Now, before you get started with your panorama, there's a few things to consider and keep in mind, just so you don't get back home and realize that your shots don't match up or line up. So let's discuss a few of those pointers. Firstly, it might be obvious, but you need a good steady tripod. Having a good tripod will allow you to move your camera freely without going up or down, making sure those shots line up perfectly. Secondly, your lens choice. Now, you can shoot on a wide angle lens, but it's not always ideal because of distortion mainly. Now, you'll find that sometimes closer to the edges your images will be distorted more, and it can create a bit of a misalignment in Photoshop when you start stitching your panorama together. The ideal kind of lens choice is anything from a 24-70 or a 50mm, even going as telephoto as 100mm to a 70-200mm. Those will be your ideal lens choices. The less distortion you have in your image to start off with, the less Photoshop will struggle to put all those images together. While most of my panoramas consist of using my 16-35, I always zoom in a little bit closer to the 35mm end of the lens to avoid any kind of distortion and misalignment in post. Starting off, make sure your tripod is level, especially when you're going to start panning from left to right or right to left. Once you're done setting up your camera and tripod, you've got the right exposure. Make sure your aperture is something between f8 and f16. You want sharpness all the way through. So you'll start off by moving to the left, taking a shot, move it incrementally 5 degrees, take another shot, move it another 5 degrees, take another shot, and so on until you reach the other side. This way you'll get a nice 170-degree frame that you can later stitch together in Photoshop. Make sure you don't adjust anything while you move your tripod, such as shutter speed, aperture, or your ISO. All your shots need to be consistent throughout, otherwise you're going to get really bad inconsistencies in Photoshop when you stitch it together. The other thing to keep in mind is to use manual focus at all times. This way you get a focus point, keep it on there while moving your camera, and you'll be sure that autofocus is not going to jump in between focus points at any time. Once you're done, review your images and make sure everything is consistent, everything is in the right focal plane, and that everything lines up. If not, try again until you succeed. Right, so now we've taken the images, we've loaded them on our computer, and now we need to start the post-production process. Let's head on over to the computer and see what we can do. Right, so we've got our photos loaded up here in Adobe Bridge, and I'm going to make my selection now. I've got about 10 photos here that I shot in Dead Flay in Namibia, and with this specific set of images, I didn't actually use a tripod. It was such a quick rushed shoot. I was only there for about 10 minutes and I didn't have my tripod with me. I just had my camera and a 16-35mm lens, so all I could really do was just kind of pan the camera along and hope that there was a steady shot. Obviously this is not the ideal situation. I thought I'd choose this so you can kind of see to what extent you can actually create a panorama if you are pushed like I was to go in without a tripod and you really need to get the shot. So here we go. We've got 10 images here just of this petrified tree, and I'm going to select all of them using Control A. I'm going to go up to Tools here and go down to Photoshop. I'm going to say Photo Merge. This dialog box pops up and I'm just going to leave it as is at auto. I've got all my files selected over here. I'm going to say blend images together. Don't stress too much about these boxes, you can leave them unticked. And I'm just going to go OK. Now Photoshop's going to attempt to align all these images for you, and all you need to do now is sit back, relax, and wait. Right, now we've got our final panorama. As you can see, there's quite a few edges around here that's missing due to your lens being circular and not being able to capture everything 100%. But we can sort this problem out. All I'm going to go do now is I'm going to head over here to my crop tool, and over here I'm going to select 17 by 6. That is my go-to ratio for cropping a panorama image. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to bring this down to the side there. Bring this one down. And just move my composition slightly down. I'd like to get the root of the tree in there and also keep the top. So there we go. And let's just see if we've got all the edges inside. See, there we go. Just bring that in a little bit. That one's definitely in. And I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm just going to go ahead and press enter. And it's going to crop my image down. And there we go. It's as simple as that. Now we've got our image done and we can actually start heading into grading this image, cleaning it up, and whatever else we need to do. So let's zoom in a little bit and see if there are any dust specks on the sensor. It's always visible in the sky. It looks pretty clean. Everything else looks good. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's zoom out. Now we've got our images all here on the right. As you can see, Photoshop went ahead and created a mask around every single image, masking out what's needed and removing what's not needed. If you want to work non-destructively, I would suggest just making a group by pressing Command or Control G. I'm going to name this raw pano output. Right, after that we can go down to our adjustment layers and we can go ahead and start kind of grading this. So I'm going to do a selective color here and I'm just going to increase the reds. There's quite a bit of reds in the sand dunes in the back there. I'm just going to go ahead and just make this color pop a little bit more. Move over to the yellow channel, bring out those yellows just so much, just a little bit more. Increase the reds and magentas a little bit. There we go. Now heading over to the cyans channel and I'm going to just increase the cyan in the sky a little bit, really just making it pop. Over to the blue. That's nice, I like that. Alright, now over to my neutrals. And it's important just to kind of experiment a little bit. You know, you've got everything here. See what works, see what doesn't work for your image, but the important thing is to obviously have fun. Quite like that. I'm going to just head over to my shadows lastly and just see, I'm going to bring in a bit of cyan there, just making it a bit more contrasty. Right, let's look at the before and after. Let's just see, I just want to bring in a little bit blue rather than, there we go, I think that's better. Over here, and this is just important, you know, it's all part of the process. Cool. Now we can add a bit of vibrance to it. And let's see the before and after. I think it needs a little bit more contrast, so I'm just going to add a curves layer. Just a gentle bit of contrast. I think that's good. And then lastly, I'm just going to add a sharpening layer. Okay, I'm just going to open up my Beauty Retouch panel here from Retouching Academy. I love the sharpening preset they've got on here. It's just basically a high pass filter along with a few other things. Bring this down to about 50%. Let's have a look. It's just adding a little bit of clarity to the image. Right, and there you go. That is the image done. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. As always, if you like it, press that like button, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so. Make sure you click on the bell so you get all the notifications, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks so much for tuning in.